And there is yet another part that I am missing that is really pissing me off, the amount that I'm missing out of this movie. I guess it'll be a fairly brief summary. The next major scene was, on the last morning, Charlie goes in to try and wake Frank up, and he's just lackluster. Just doesn't want to get out of bed because he's tired and old and done. And he just wants to, end it. So Charlie doesn't want this because Charlie actually starts to become close with Frank over the course of the weekend. And so he started saying, he's like, "Come on, we gotta figure something out. And let's go for a ride." So they go out. They end up renting a Ferrari. Charlie drives it around, and Frank isn't really seeming to be getting much enjoyment out of it. So they try something else. They let him drive. And he just cranks it. With Charlie's help, he was able to successfully drive around the streets of New York without an accident. And so, I can imagine that would be quite a thrill. Because once you go blind, something like driving, you just immediately, you'd know that's not happening again. But, so I guess for him to... And he was having a good time, and Charlie's starting to think that he's cheating him up, thought maybe something was working. So yeah, having a good time. So then they end up going back to the apartment, or the hotel where they're staying afterwards, and they get pulled over by a cop. That's not much. He doesn't even realize that Frank's blind, too. But they get back to the hotel, and Frank asks Charlie to get him a drink and some cigars. So Charlie goes down, he's just about to leave the lobby, and then he must have realized there was a reason, so he ends up going back up and sees Frank putting on his lieutenant uniform. And he's got his gun, and they already had a prior argument about the gun, which I missed, which I probably shouldn't have, because I remembered it, and I probably shouldn't have went over it. But he had his gun, and Charlie tried to get him to surrender it. He wouldn't give up the gun, but he was able to make him give up the bullets, or so he thought. And when he walks in, he sees him putting a clip into the gun, when Charlie thought that he'd given him all the bullets, and apparently he hadn't. So, Charlie tries to stop him, says put down the gun and such. Frank holds the gun up to him, saying, "You can leave or stay. If you stay, I'll shoot you too." They start to get into a fight, they wrestle for the gun, and whatnot. And so he's saying, and Frank, in his fit, says that Charlie's life is just as over as Frank's is, and says that it'll put them both out of their misery. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, and one of the best quotes that I love, I'm gonna label 3 quotes, and I don't care if you think if it comes off weird, because I feel weird saying them. But, yeah, so, right, Frank's got the gun up to Charlie's head, saying he's gonna shoot him. Charlie's trying to say, "Just so you made a mistake, move on," and such. Move on with your life. He's like, and so Frank seems back, "What life? I'm in the dark here. Can't you see? I'm in the dark here." That did feel weird to say that, but yeah, that's the line he says. So then they say a few things. Charlie gets him to calm down. Puts the gun down. They both end up crying. And so they just go back to the living room and they just have a calm chat. And they calm down. And it turns out he seems like he's gonna be okay. Oh, and there's one of the most important parts. Charlie and another guy, not his friend, acquaintance, George, witnessed George's friends. Basically, they filled a giant balloon with paint and poured it all over the Dean and the Dean's new Jaguar given to him by the trustees. And so over the weekend, Charlie's supposed to think about this, and Charlie doesn't want to rat them out. He's not friends, but he's not a rat, so he doesn't want to rat them out. So after the weekend, they get back, and George has got his dad there, and Charlie's got no one. But Frank comes back and says that he's there to speak on his parents' behalf. So they say it. George is basically hiding behind his father. His father's basically there to, get him out of this whole mess. When Charlie's got no one. Charlie wasn't afraid. He was going to face it, and he didn't care. But in the end, the three who did it weren't going to get punished. George was apparently the only one still worthy of obtaining the title of being at that school, and Charlie was who was going to get punished. The one person who was actually going to get punished. And so, the only one who actually had a moral high ground in the situation. So, Frank stepped up on his behalf, saying he wasn't a snitch, and he just flipped. Two of my favorite lines are in this scene, such as when he mentions out the three boys who actually made the balloon and whatnot. He yells out because the whole school is at this audience hearing to figure out who it is. The entire school, which appears to be an all-boys school, other than like teachers and whatnot, as far as I can tell. But so he yells out, Harry, Jimmy, Trent, whoever you are out there, fuck you too. And I like that line. And so and he's just sticking up for Charlie, and he's just ravishing everyone, just totally tearing them apart. Every member of the school, the committee, everyone at this school, in Charlie's defense. And he starts going on how if he was the man he was before, he's too old, too tired. And he says, if I was the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place. And that was the third quote that I'm going to mention. It gets easier the more I say them. But yeah, and so that happens. Charlie ends up not getting punished because of Frank's speech. The entire school clapped in it. They loved his speech. And so yeah, he got off free. And so he goes back to see Frank off to take him home. And Frank has grandchildren because he's got his daughter and her husband, and then his granddaughter Francine and grandson Willie. Willie appears to be between the ages of 3 to 5, and Francine seems, I don't know, between the ages of 6 and 8, I'd say, would be. Probably, if I had a rough guess, because it doesn't actually say. But he was always, grumpy. He didn't, although the kids were too young to take it to heart, and the adults were used to it, he didn't treat them very well, and he was upset. But I say, in my personal opinion, he was okay. Like, he didn't have a good reason to treat them that way, but I can understand. I can empathize. Sympathize? Empathize? Whatever. But I thought it was very sweet at the end, because he walks up and he started talking to Francine, and he says that they should make up, and so yeah, and he walks away, and he's talking about the kids, and he's just sort of, laughing, smiling, just sort of making a few jokes with them. And so yeah, I thought it was a very touching end. All in all, a great movie. Just, if I was to rate it, I don't know, 3.5, 4 stars out of 5. Definitely. All around good, and had its laughs, had its sensitivity. Yeah. So yeah, that was my horrible summary of Scent of a Woman, Al Pacino, Chris O'Donnell. Did I say that Charlie was played by Chris O'Donnell? I meant to. But yeah, so like I said about the question, what's your favorite movie? And what's your favorite quote from that movie? I'll catch you guys later.